Welcome back to The Verse. My name is Nathan Smith, and on this episode, I sit down with my cousin, Mia Barcia-Colombo. Mia and I talk about her time as a versatile cellist in Los Angeles, as well as some of her fascinating musical experiences with other famous musicians in California. I hope you enjoy. Wherever you are watching or listening, make sure to subscribe for more. Welcome back to The Verse. My name is Nathan Smith, and today I'm here with a very special guest, my cousin, Mia Barcia-Colombo. How is it going, Mia?
It's going really well. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming. And today, we're just going to ask you some questions to get the audience to know a little bit more about you, and then also we will collaborate on a song, and you can perform a solo. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. So just starting off, I see your dog in the background, Lil T. What's it like being a new pet owner?
I'm so sorry. I had this almost perfectly timed where he wouldn't be drawing any attention to himself, but of course, the second we began, he decided to make his presence known. What's it like being a new dog owner? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's definitely incredible having, taking care of a little life, especially a little cute dog puppy life. But it's a lot of work. I feel like, it's kind of like people say it's like having a fur baby in your midst. And especially because I got him when he was really little. So I had to teach him everything he knows. But luckily he loves the cello. So that kind of works out for me. It's not too distracting having him around, and he sleeps at my feet when I practice. So far he's been a great cello dog.
Very cute, very cute. So as you mentioned, you are a cello player based in the LA area. How did you get started in cello and just in music in general?
I feel like my parents are music lovers, similar to yours. And so they did what any good parent would do, which is just to, push their kids into taking music lessons. I feel like there's only benefits to be had from learning music at a young age. Just, the skills that you build to learn to read music, and then just getting more into performing it and assigning your own story to every piece. It's really enriching. And so they had me play piano at a young age when I was 4 or 5 years old. And I liked it. My brother and I took piano lessons, and then he wound up pursuing violin briefly. As you know, he's definitely not a violinist now. That was a short-lived stint. He was good at it though, but he wound up moving on. And I think I think that I didn't like hearing the brightness of the violin sound in the house. I was kind of emotionally allergic to the E string that they have going on. And so when my parents asked me if I wanted to play a string instrument, I said yes, but I don't want to play one that's that loud and that's that high up. And so another option was the cello. And I feel like I really connected to it from the first time I heard it. I really had this special connection that I don't know where it came from because my parents don't play string instruments besides guitar. But I feel like when I first heard a professional recording of someone performing cello repertoire, I really connected with it and wanted to do it myself.
Well, that's really interesting to hear, because it seems like some people really gravitate to one instrument, and it seems like that's what you did, and you're following your dreams now. So that is amazing to hear. So what are some memorable moments that made you want to pursue music?
It's a really good question. I'm really sorry about the extra dog noises in the background.
No worries.
Just let me know. Tony. Okay, I'm just gonna ignore him. I decided pretty young that I wanted to pursue cello professionally, and I think that's, looking back on it, that's kind of wild to know that that's what you want to do from a young age. And it wasn't because I was on a soloist track. I wasn't competing. I was competing a little bit here and there, but it wasn't, a relentless. I wasn't like homeschooled and pursuing it that extremely. I was still able to have a really normal high school life, as well as playing cello. And I was on the swim team as well, and able to be a little well-rounded. But I still at the same time decided, I want to say around somewhere in middle school, that I was going to pursue it professionally. And that's in part because the teachers that I had told me that I would have to kind of decide earlier than later if I really wanted to be serious about it and consider going to a music college, to a conservatory, and getting my degree in music. But it was also because I really enjoyed performing and enjoyed playing and seeing my own personal progress, practicing every day and putting in that work and the enrichment that you get from seeing your own progress, which I really believe that anybody can achieve. I think that natural talent is a real thing, but hard work pays off almost more in a lot of ways. And anyone who starts music can see that just by putting the work in and practicing, that you do get better. It's a really cool feeling. So yeah, I decided in middle school, and then, is that the question? I feel like I really wandered off topic.
The question was just kind of touching on what were some of your memorable moments that made you want to pursue cello?
Yes, okay. So I remember when I was younger and I was this actually might have been before I got my first cello. They used to have these assemblies for my elementary school where they would bring in somebody to demonstrate a new skill. Sometimes it would be a dancer, sometimes it would be an accordion player, or like some sort of artistic person that was amazing at what they did. And they had a cellist come one year, and I think she was in middle school or high school. I was in elementary school. I was maybe like 6 or 7 years old. And they had this girl come and perform a concerto for the whole school. And I'll never forget, I was like, that's so amazing what she's doing. That instrument is incredible. It's like so deep and beautiful, and she's so connected to it. And I was like pretty derpy as a kid, so I don't know why suddenly this was like very clear to me how amazing and profound it was to see a cellist performing. But I remember other kids in my school making fun of her for being so emotional while she played. And I was very protective of her for no reason. You know, I wasn't even playing at that point. And so that was definitely a really influential moment reflecting back on, because it really made me just want to do exactly what she did. And I think from that point on, I kind of pursued it strongly.
Yeah, for sure.
And then also growing up to see, my parents would take me to symphony concerts. And so I grew up going to see the LA Philharmonic perform, like from the time that I was really, really little and kind of unsure how to be a constructive audience member in a concert like that until present day. So
yeah,
that helped.
So tell me about after high school, how you kind of got on the path to where you are now.
Okay, after high school, so I wanted to pursue music, so I definitely applied to music conservatories. A couple of the best conservatories for cello at the time were also attached to universities. So I applied to the normal, you know, strictly music, Curtis and Juilliard type conservatories, but then also USC at the time had a really amazing cello studio. And that's actually where I wound up going, staying close to home, because I loved the cello teacher there. I just knew that she was the right teacher for me right away. But unfortunately, she was really old. She was in her 80s when I started school there. And she passed away pretty soon into my studies, like a year and a half into my undergrad studies. And I wound up transferring and finishing my undergrad at Peabody Conservatory, which is part of Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore in Maryland. And that was the first time I had not lived on the West Coast. So it was a nice change of pace in all ways.
So other than your parents and a few cello teachers, who are some of your biggest musical inspirations?
Ooh, that's a good question. Biggest musical inspirations. I feel like I'm a little bit not normal when it comes to being a classical cellist, because I really love all genres of music. I wouldn't say equally because they're so different, but I'm able to have like the love that I have for classical cello, also for alternative music, also for electronic music, and that's kind of what has made me thrive in the career that I have because I don't just stick to one. I like, do them all. So I feel like there's different answers almost like for cello. Growing up, I was idolizing the soloist Jacqueline Dupre, who was like this amazing old school powerhouse cello soloist, and she inspired me classically. But there are a ton of singer-songwriters and bands and producers that have also inspired me, equally as profoundly.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. So, pre-pandemic, what was it like to be a part of the LA music scene?
It was great. It's amazing how you don't realize what you have until it's gone. Kind of. Because nothing has been happening, like no live performance has been happening since the pandemic hit. I feel like being a freelancer in LA was really eclectic. I love it for that reason. You can have a classical career, and you can sub with symphonies, and I sub regularly with the LA Phil, which is like one of my favorite things to do for work. It's also the fulfillment of like a lifelong dream since I used to go admire the orchestra as a kid. There's an amazing other symphonies in town, though. There's symphonies all around. You can play with the LA Opera or LA Chamber Orchestra. San Diego Symphony's not too far. Santa Barbara Symphony's not too far. And then totally differently, like Gear Shift, you can record soundtracks for film and TV. And I do a little bit of that too. I've played for a few movies, a few TV shows, a few video games, which actually have really beautiful, complicated scores, which I had no idea about before I got called for my first job, recording for, I think I did like a Halo Wars 3 video game. I'm like, wow, this is like one of the more complicated, beautiful scores I've ever played. You just wouldn't think it's for this video game. And then you can play for different talk show musical guests or award shows or commercials. That happens sometimes. Sometimes you're not even really playing, but you're just paid to sit there with your instrument for a commercial, which is kind of interesting. That's called sidelining. What else happens? Yeah, singer-songwriters. It's really a big mix, and I think I really miss it now that the world has been shut down for almost a year, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. So that leads me to my next question. How has the pandemic impacted your music?
How can I put this? Like, everything I know has changed as I knew it. I feel like everything before LA shut down, which was in the second week of March 2020, all of my Instagram posts were about the work that I was doing. It was like a live concert every weekend, sometimes two, something exciting happening all the time. And ever since LA shut down, it's basically just pictures of me in the desert. I feel like I've turned into like a desert dweller. There's been no live performances at all, pretty much. I think that some organizations have tried to do a little bit of, socially distanced live streaming stuff. But for the most part, it's all shut down. The recording industry has tried to maintain a few sessions. I was able to do one movie during the pandemic. And I was just thankful to be there. I was just thankful to be playing cello professionally at all, since it was on hiatus for so many months. But, it's just different. Everybody's in a mask, which you wouldn't think, changes how you play cello. But there's something about my face being covered that I really didn't realize. I actually look down at my instrument often. It restricts your breathing, and everybody's 6 feet apart. So I felt like I was on my own island in the recording session, and you're encouraged not to be too close to anybody. It's not really musicians in our natural habitat.
Yeah.
We're usually a pretty close-knit crew.
It seems like
so. Yeah, we're eager. It is. We're excited. I'm excited and hopeful that the vaccine is happening, and hopefully we'll be back to normal.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And so, when we are somewhat back to normal, post-pandemic, what do you think the music scene in LA will look like? If it'll look the same, I assume it'll look a little bit different, but how do you think that'll look like?
I'm kind of, ignorantly, blissfully hoping that it's just back to normal because I do miss the connectivity that exists on stage with an orchestra where we're not, it takes a toll on an orchestra as like a breathing, living organism that's, the conductor's at the helm of, and to take the connectivity away and to put distance between people and players, it really disrupts the flow of what's happening. So, I think it's cool that there's been so much content online, and maybe that there's been content that's free and reaching an audience that wasn't otherwise able to access it. So I think that that's always good, to spread music to people that otherwise wouldn't have been exposed is amazing. But I am eager for the return of live concerts and performances and shows and all of that fun stuff, because it's just, it's a part of culture that can't be replaced.
Absolutely. We want to spread music, not COVID.
That should be on a shirt.
So you mentioned getting back to some performances. Would you like to perform a solo piece today?
I would love to perform a solo piece.
Awesome. So would you like to introduce the piece that you'll be playing just a little bit?
Sure. I'm going to be playing a prelude from Bach Cello Suite number 3 in C major. And the prelude is the first movement, and it's kind of the introduction to the whole suite. So I hope you enjoy it.
Sounds good. Well, we will set up for that, and we'll see you in just a bit. Well, Mia, that was just beautiful. I loved hearing that piece. So tell me about, now that we're talking a little bit about classical music, tell me about your experience playing with the LA Phil, as you previously mentioned.
I love playing with the LA Phil. I mean, they're just a world-class symphony. And like I said before, I grew up idolizing and listening to them. So it's really special and hits home for me in every way possible to be on stage with them. Also, their venue, Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles. You know, I grew up taking lessons at the Colburn School all throughout middle school and high school, which is right across the street on Grand Avenue in Los Angeles, downtown. And I saw Disney Hall being built. So for me, it's one of my favorite buildings, if not my favorite building in the whole city. That's where the LA Phil performs. And so just the combination of this remarkable ensemble in this incredible architectural monster of the city, it's really, really special and amazing. And they've been super kind to me. I've been playing with them as a substitute cellist for, I think, at least 5 years whenever they need. So it's been really special to be a part of that.
That does sound like some really cool opportunities for you. And touching on another very cool experience, you were one of the cellists in Michael Bublé's TV special pretty recently. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. This is a couple years ago. I don't know, it's crazy because I feel like we lost a year with the COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow things are already like just further in the review mirror than I'd like them to be. But he had contracted an orchestra or string players for, I want to say, a Valentine's Day special that he did. And it was a blast. He did it. That was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. And I did not know what to expect. I wasn't, before doing it, I wasn't going in as a diehard Bublé fan. Oh no. I guess Tony is a Bublé fan, so that's what he's trying to tell me. Hopefully that's the end of those barks. But I came out a super, super huge fan of his. Not only is he an amazing singer, truly, but he's just a really all-around nice person. I mean, we work as freelance musicians for a lot of famous singers, and they're not all that lovely and amazing to work with. So yeah, it was great. It was kind of a medley of some iconic standards, and yeah, he killed it.
That's awesome. I was able to watch it, and that was just a super cool opportunity to see you on TV for the first time that I've ever seen. Was that your first time being on national television? I think it was the first, definitely the first time of any substance being on TV. But it wasn't the last time, because I do remember seeing you on the Grammys performing with Ariana Grande. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that experience?
Sure. That was really special as well. And that was right before the world shut down, January 2020. One of the last very cool things that I did before live shows went away. I got called to perform for her set at the last Grammy award show. And again, like an amazing talent, amazing person to work for. She cares very much for her product and the people that work for her. So it was another great experience working with somebody who's so famous and definitely doesn't need to be as caring to the people that work for her, and she was. And I remember for her, we had these in-ears so that we could hear the click track for what we were playing, and it was also attached to her solo microphone. And I was just listening to her run these scales backstage when she was warming up, and just being blown away. Like, she can really, really sing. It's a little scary how good she is.
She really is an incredible talent. So it must have been a really fantastic experience to be able to play with all these A-list celebrities that you've been able to play with. And so touching on other experiences, for those that don't know, you've been featured on a bunch of albums put out by whether LA musicians or other musicians of all different genres. Who are some artists that you've worked with, and what are some albums that we might have heard you on?
So many different genres. I'm trying to think. One of the earlier cool sessions that I had when I first moved back to LA was with Tyler, the Creator. That was really cool. And he was there and he was very hands-on in the process of recording and producing the record. But it was just him and a string quartet. And so it was this very intimate session. It was really neat to see how much he cared about what the strings were gonna do and what they would sound like on his album. I'm trying to think what other albums have I played on? I think I did a music video for Ex Ambassadors, but I wasn't on there. I think they had actually recorded that track separately. Sometimes these things get done in different places and it includes a whole different orchestra, which is kind of crazy. But it's nice because it provides a lot of work for, a ton of different musicians that are here in town. I didn't play on this album, but I did perform with her live. I played for Bjork in Los Angeles a few years ago, and that was a really incredible experience as well, just to play with an artist that has such a diehard, long-standing following. Like, I just remember seeing this sea of people singing all the lyrics to her songs and just being like, this is wild to see how influential her music has been, how many people it has reached. And they're all here, and it's such a joyous occasion to be on stage playing for these fans of hers. I think those are some of my favorites.
Those are some really cool experiences to hear about. And so who are some artists that you are hoping to work with in the future?
Oh, man. I would love to work. Any artists, I pretty much just like a challenge. So any artist that wants cello on their track or on their album, I am on board. One of my favorite, if I'm talking about pop artists, is Rosalia. She's been a favorite of mine for a couple of years. And she actually performed at the Grammys. Or did she perform? Yeah, she performed at the Grammys that I played with Ariana. And I also played the Latin Grammys before that for Bad Bunny. And Rosalia had gone on I think 1 or 2 acts earlier. And I got to see her, and I was, I had a total fangirl moment for her. But again, my music taste is all over the place. So it could be, someone like her. It could be playing a concert with Gustavo Dudamel conducting again with the LA Phil. I really bop back and forth from different genres.
That is really cool to hear about. So one last question before we perform a collaboration piece. When you are gone, what do you want your legacy to be?
Ooh, that's such a heavy question. I feel because I have this kind of unique relationship to music and my interests span truly across so many genres, I just would love to kind of pass on a legacy that it's okay to be a classical musician, to be a classical string player or any instrument, and also passionately love to play alternative music, to be part of a band. I would love to have a 10-year job in an orchestra and also play with a band all the time and normalize that and show that you don't have to be one way, one personality to do one thing. You can actually, a great musician should be able to cross genres and should be able to switch it up and not be stuck in one track. And I think that, especially if you're going to work in LA or somewhere that has a very eclectic music scene, that's a skill that a lot of my colleagues also possess. But it's important, and I think it's good just to keep an open mind. So I would want to teach generations after me to be able to do that confidently and not have any sort of apprehension that they're not, fitting into one mold to pursue one line of work. That it's okay to cross genres.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on The Verse, Mia. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Would you love to shout out some social media accounts so our audience can find you?
Sure, although I have to say again that my Instagram has definitely gone from like cello player, cello on stage performer to desert dweller, but hopefully not for long. But that handle is Mia, MIA underscore BC. And yeah, I welcome anybody who wants to check that out.
All right, well, I will link that in the description so it's easier for people to find you. And one last thing before we wrap it up. Would you like to perform a collaboration piece with me?
Yes, I would. Let's do it.
All right, well, here's The Good Life by Devin Gilfillian. Thanks for watching.